Welcome to Convince Me, presented by Bet365. We are kicking off the Power Hour, the only NFL pregame show with all the stuff you care about, none of the fluff you don't. I am Chad Millman. In studio, folks, over the next 30 minutes, my Action Network buddies, Sean Kerner, Chris Raybon, Simon Hunter, will try to convince me what we should bet for this Wildcard Saturday. Plus, Evan Abrams with market reports and trends that make you sound smarter than all your friends at the bottom half of the hour. Joe Gallant, Brian Matthews, special guest Nick Giffen and Charlie DiSturco take us through the touchdown show, previewing the best touchdown props on the board. Don't forget, Wild Card Weekend event happening today, happening tomorrow. Shepherd and the Knucklehead, Hoboken, New Jersey. Check out the links in the YouTube description. RSVP. And tonight, reminder, Dolphins-Chiefs is a Peacock exclusive game. Don't worry if you're coming to the event tonight. Shepherd and the Knucklehead has the game. That's right, 8 p.m. The event will be available. You will not miss a thing. I promise, as Chief Content Officer, it's my duty to make sure I come through for you. Before we begin, reminder, like this video and subscribe to the Action Network YouTube page. All the picks we discussed today are tracked for free in the award-winning Action Network app. Download it today. Also, don't forget, BetSync your bet. 365 bets with the Action app. The coolest, slickest way to track your picks with ease and speed. Click the My Accounts button in the My Action tab in the Action app. All right, guys. We're talking about the Browns and the Texans. It's been a crazy, crazy week of numbers changing. I can tell you right now that Cleveland opened as a 1.5-point favorite. It got up to 2.5. It bounced around a little bit here and there. It's settling in at 2.5 again. A lot of the bets coming in on Cleveland, a little bit more of the money coming in on Cleveland, but it's a game a lot of people have been looking at the Browns. All right, before we get to the Browns-Texans game, look at this guy. Look at this guy. Huge congrats to our friend Sean Kerner. Named Fantasy Pros 2023 most accurate expert for his weekly player rankings, topping 167 other people to win. When they announced you were number one, Fantasy Pros wrote a strong case that you are the GOAT of player projections. We couldn't agree more. Congrats, my brother. We're lucky to have your expertise.
Thank you.
We're happy to have our viewers getting your picks. Kick us off with Browns-Texans.
Well, so obviously I'm going to have to go with the player prop, right?
I think so.
I'm going to go with Dalton Schultz, under 41.5 receiving yards. This is a tough matchup for tight ends. The Browns have allowed the fewest yards per game to tight ends. Even when you factor in strength of schedule, they're number one DVOA against tight ends. They also play man coverage at the highest rate. Schultz, like many other tight ends, struggles against man coverage. Against zone, he ranks top 10 in terms of yards per route run. Against man coverage, he's outside the top 20, so it's a tougher matchup for him. Plus, the Texans right tackle, Charles Heck, one of the worst pass blockers on the season. I think the Browns are going to line up Myles Garrett across from him. And the last time that happened, Dalton Schultz stayed in to block a lot more than normal, so he's going to stay in there and chip. So I don't think he's going to run quite as many routes here. Plus, backup tight end Brevin Jordan has been eating into his playing time the past 3 games. And I think one of the low-key reasons my projections for Schultz are a bit lower than the market is the Texans have had to play Xavier Hutchinson in a full-time role the past 5 weeks because their wide receiver depth chart has been just absolutely decimated. So with potentially Noah Brown and Robert Woods back today, Hutchinson's playing time will take a huge hit. So that'll probably take away a little bit from Schultz's target share. So I'm projecting his median closer to 34.5, 35.5 yards with about a 60% chance he's going to stay under 41.5.
All right, so it's 41.5. It has been moving down a little bit.
Yeah.
You're showing your median at about 34, 34.5.
Yes.
So there's still room
Yes.
in this window if someone hasn't gotten it yet. And you are the most accurate projectionist. So the lines are moving fast whenever you make a call.
Yes.
Simon, we know I'm going to pick Sean today because he's number one. But go ahead, give me your bet anyways.
Hey, you never know, Chad. Maybe I can convince you Texans plus 2.5. It's a line we've talked about all week where I just can't take Joe Flacco as a road favorite in the playoffs. It's every time I say it out loud, it sounds even more insane, but it's really about backing Stroud and how well he's performed as a dog, especially at home, Chad. He's 5-2 ATS in his short career as a dog. And, you know, the crazy thing is history is on the side of the Browns, right? We've seen number one defense against rookie quarterbacks. A rookie quarterback is 0-3 against those number one defenses. We've never had a defense like this with such splits at home and on the road. And that's the difference here. It's like the Browns are the number one defense, but it really factors in how dominant they were at home. They're a different team on the road. So I'm pleading with people. Don't fall into this. Don't take Joe Flacco at 2.5, -2.5 as a road favorite. Take the points on the dog. This feels like it's going to be a really close game. It's going to come down to 1 or 2 points. You want to take the points here with this dog just because we've seen it time and time again. Joe Flacco is a favorite, how incredible he's been. He wants to turn the ball over. CJ does not turn the ball over. So the fact that you're getting CJ at a plus number and he doesn't turn the ball over and you're taking Flacco, a guy who does, it just blows my mind this number is what it is. It really should be closer to 1 a pick. The public has really driven this number back up. And we saw a drop in this whole week, Chad. And now it's gone up. And my final point will just be, when you're looking at this game, do you want to be a part of history and betting CJ Stroud, or do you really want to bet Joe Flacco, once again, as a road favorite? Say it again. Joe Flacco, a road favorite. I just can't do it. So the Browns have had an incredible season. They've overcome so many injuries. I think the injuries catch up to them. Amari Cooper, incredible what he's done this season. I think he had over 200 yards against this exact Houston defense. Historically, a player that's had over 200 yards receiving, playing the same team again, has never crossed 80 receiving yards. So, again, the history is not on his side. So I do love the number here, taking this plus 2.5 with this Houston team. Chad.
Look, it's a convincing argument.
I tried.
You're right, and you're right. Amari Cooper had 265 yards. That was a game Joe Flacco was the quarterback. That's when sort of the legend started to take hold. You're also right. You talk about the home-away splits. The Browns gave up 30 points a game on the road. They had 8 road games, 9 home games. In their road games, combined, they gave up 112 more points on the road. Everything about their defense is not just pedestrian, but terrible on the road.
Easy now.
And Raybon made a good point on his podcast, on the Action Network podcast and the Sunday Six Pack with Stuckey, similar to what you just said, which is like, at the end of the day, do you want to be on the side of Joe Flacco, plus 2.5?
The ghost of Joe Flacco.
The ghost of Joe Flacco. Raybon, what do you got?
Well, Chad, I mean, I don't know. We're talking about Dalton Schultz and Amari Cooper. Who are these starters? Like, why are we talking about these guys? Let's talk about somebody that's going to be disgusting. Let's go Dameon Pierce, under 10.5 rushing yards. So in 3 of the last 4 games, he's had 6 rushing yards or less. He's really struggled in this new scheme. Remember, he had a really good rookie year, but then they changed everything. They changed their offensive scheme. He's really struggled. Hasn't had a 4-yard per carry game all year. Every single game, he's been 3.8 or lower. And in their most important game of the year, last week, Dameon Pierce did not even receive a carry. Devin Singletary took all the backfield work. Dare Ogunbowale, some third downs, but that was it. And Pierce has taken on a new role as the kickoff returner. So that's kind of how they're getting him the ball. So they don't really feel pressured anymore to kind of give him carries just to kind of keep him involved or make for the reason him being active. So I just think this is a most likely outcome is probably a goose egg. The only risk you're really running into is if Devin Singletary gets hurt. Then you lose the bet. But I think this is one where you're on goose egg alert. It might not even be a sweat if it goes the way I think it will.
Well, look, I love that one too. The only challenge is that every time someone tries to bet it, some book is pulling it off the board because it's such a clear winner if you had been following what's happening with this Texans scheme and how they've been giving Singletary the ball. So I love it. I love it. I love his the most because in honor of Kerner being the 2023 Fantasy Pros most accurate weekly ranking projectionist, we're going with Dalton Schultz. Under 41.5 receiving yards. Nice job, Kerner. All right. Bet365 is our sponsor. They are presenting Convince Me. Bet365 doesn't do ordinary. That's why you get more boosts with them than with anyone else. Every day they power up the odds on hundreds of bets to give you a chance to win more. Bet365 boosts specific markets, your winnings, and even parlays, and they don't stop there. Keep an eye out for their biggest and best odds with the incredible Super Boost. Check out the boost and see why it's never ordinary at Bet365. Must be 21 or older and present in Colorado, Iowa, New Jersey, Louisiana, Ohio, Virginia, or 18 and older in Kentucky. Gambling problem, call 1-800-GAMBLER or 1-800-BETS-OFF in Iowa. Terms, conditions, restrictions apply. All right. Evan Abrams, you are joining us. It's frigid where you are in the Upper East Side of Manhattan. I know. Listen, times are tough. You can't even keep the heat on where you are.
I was gonna say I can't be an Arrowhead since I'm going to Shepherd and the Knucklehead later, but this is the best I could do. So let's start with the weather. -5 degrees, 13 to 15 mile an hour winds is what's expected in Kansas City tonight. That'd be the coldest game in Dolphins history. The previous was a 10-degree game in Kansas City in 2008. History's fantastic. Here's a little bit of info though. So 4 games in playoff history have had negative temperatures at kickoff. They've averaged 33.5 combined points per game. Total tonight, 43.5. Just some information. Now, here's the trivia question for the group. Simple. Can we name the last quarterback to win a game for the Dolphins outdoors in sub 40-degree temperatures? Who did it? That is the question for the end. Also for the chat. Please guess. Go ahead. Only Dolphins quarterback, so not too difficult. In terms of the market though, Dolphins Chiefs, 82% of the bets on the under right now. Action Labs has been tracking playoff totals for 20 plus years. This would be the highest over or under in a playoff game. It was 79% is the highest previously, so on record pace at the moment.
When do we get to guess?
Sorry, go. What do you got?
When do we get to guess the winner?
At the end.
All right, at the end. All right,
at the end, trivia at the end. So
sorry.
Let's talk Browns-Texans just for 1 second. So the last time the Browns were road favorites in the playoffs, December 26, 1955. NFL championship game against the Rams. It was in the Rams stadium. Paul Brown, their coach, Otto Graham, their quarterback. They faced Norm Van Brocklin. 10 interceptions in the game. Joe Flacco's dad wasn't born for 5 more years, so it's been a minute. And then finally, Flacco, 5-0 against the spread in the wildcard round. He is tied for the best record ATS in the wildcard round since 1978 when the format started with Phillip Rivers. So he could break that record tonight or today with a cover. And honestly, the last thing to talk about are the Texans tickets. 200 to 1 in the preseason. The last team, 200 to 1 or higher, to make the divisional round was the 1981 Giants. 4 teams at that price or higher have lost prior to that. That was LT's rookie year, so also been a minute. Guys, back to trivia. The chat, we've been seeing some questions, answers, back and forth. What do we got?
Raybon, what's your answer?
Chad Henne?
Chad Henne. Simon?
I'll go the easiest one, I guess, Marino.
I'll go Ryan Tannehill.
I am going to say Don Strock.
Oh my God, I stumped you all. So I can't believe this is the answer, but it is Matt Moore beating
Matt
the Bills
Moore getting
in
himself off the
2016.
NBA writing bench to
Correct.
get himself. Man, that guy is really versatile. All right, Evan. That's good stuff. Listen, you talked a lot about that Dolphins Chiefs total. That is going to be the game that a lot of people are paying attention to. It is going to be a wicked, wicked weather day. Let's get to that game right now. This line has moved. We're talking about the total. Opened at 46.5, down to 43.5. So many bets on the under. As Evan said, this could be an historic number of tickets on the under. Fellas, let's talk about some picks here. Kroner, what do you got?
So I'm going with the prop here. I'm going with Tua under 21.5 completions. And there's really 3 main factors here why I like this under. The first is it's his first career playoff start. It's well documented that quarterbacks tend to struggle in their first career playoff start. There's been 77 quarterbacks that have made their first playoff start since the year 2002, and they're averaging a 58% completion rate. The second is just the freezing cold temperature. Typically, when you see the weather below 35 degrees, we see about an average of a 3% drop in completion rate. Since this game's closer to 0 and probably one of the coldest games in NFL history, you would have to imagine it might be a little bit more than 3%. So that's going to be tough for Tua to overcome. Plus, there's like 10 to 20 mile an hour winds, so also have some wind to deal with. The third is the Chiefs are able to generate pressure. They've generated pressure at the second highest rate in the league. Tua sees a 25% drop-off in completion rate when facing pressure. He's been lucky because he's actually faced the lowest pressure rate in the league. He gets rid of the ball quickly. But anytime he's faced a team in the top 5 in pressure rate this year, 3 teams, he's finished under this prop. So clearly it's an issue for him. And, Kansas City has a run funnel defense. They rank 5th in DVOA against the pass, 27th against the run. This is the rare time the Dolphins actually have Raheem Mostert and Devon Achane healthy and active. So I think they're going to lean on the running backs here, get some explosive plays out of the running game, and they just won't need to lean on Tua's passing as much here. So I'm projecting this closer to 20 with about a 64% chance of staying under 21.5.
Yeah, I'm actually surprised the number feels high, given even at 21.5, even with you projecting 20, which also feels high to me, given the weather, given the fact Mostert and Achane are back, given the fact that the Chiefs' defense lines up to play the pass. It's going to be a miserable day. This feels like you're getting a little bit of value on the completions. All right, Simon.
So we talked all season, betting Kansas City unders. Nothing's going to change here in the playoffs. I mean, it stinks that weather's come in because now the public is all in on this under, but this was an under you needed to bet regardless. It's just people keep betting on what the Chiefs used to be, especially this past season, and they're just not the same offense, right? We talked about it all season. The offense is not what it used to be. The same could go for the Dolphins here. The Dolphins got so much hype because they put up 70 points against that Denver team early in the season. They just aren't the same team when they play against really good teams this season, and we've seen that time and time again. This year, when they play playoff teams, the Dolphins are 1-5, and they only average 17 points per game. That's a big deal. Same goes for the Chiefs. The Chiefs are 1-4 against playoff teams this year, averaging only 18.8 points per game. That's a big deal. Now you factor in the Chiefs, their last 19 games are 16-3 to the under. Once again, people overrating this Chiefs offense. So I won't let it scare me off that it's moved so much, Chad. I know people are like, well, it's moved from 46 now down to 43. Like, it's moved 3 numbers. Isn't that a big deal? 3 points such a big deal in football? I would agree, but Sean just talked about it. It's supposed to be 50 per hour wind gust picking up, and it's negative 30 degrees. That's why it's moved. It hasn't moved because of anything else. Like, that's the reason it's moving here. So as long as you're still getting above 43, 42.5, such key numbers, I still love this number. So yeah, the under for me, 43.5. Chad, I love that play in this game.
Yeah, look, we've talked about this all season long. The wind unders, when totals are related to the amount of wind, especially when it's 15 miles per hour or higher, they're covering regardless of how much the number moves. I think they were covering by an average of 4 or 5 points. So even at 43, you're still getting the value. I'm actually surprised, given what we're seeing about the weather, that this number hasn't moved more. There's nothing about the 43 that is scaring me off. Raybon, what do you got?
I'm rolling with Miami here, Chad. I feel like the narrative is getting too crazy. It's cold. Miami can't beat good teams. It's just this number is way out of whack. I think it should still be Chiefs -3, a field goal game, because everyone's talking about the Dolphins losing 3 edge rushers. Obviously, that's not ideal. That's terrible. We're not saying it's not, but it's all about betting is all about getting the best number, getting the value, right? So let's talk about the Chiefs offense. Since the bye, in Patrick Mahomes starts, they have lost to 3 defenses ranked in the bottom 6 in DVOA. So even if you think Miami is now one of the worst defenses in the league, which they still have Jalen Ramsey, they still have very good safeties, they still have Vic Fangio coordinating, they still have a pretty decent front 7 even with the injury. So when I look at this, I look at the first matchup. Miami outgained Kansas City, more yards per play. They lose on that fluke, essentially the fluky Tyreek Hill fumble was the difference in that game. And Rashee Rice, season low in yardage against Miami. They can do that again. They got Ramsey. Travis Kelce, season low in yardage. Because when you have somebody that you can put like a cornerback like Ramsey, now you can pay attention to Kelce with the rest of your resources in coverage. So I still think Miami matches up well. And Devon Achane, this dude is averaging over 7 yards a touch. He wasn't active in that first game. He's back. Miami has the better running backs. I love Pacheco, but Miami has a better run game right now. And Miami also has the more explosive players through the passing game. So I just don't see this one. I don't see how this line should be 4.5, 5. Wild card underdogs, 7 or less. over 60% over the last 2 decades. Wild card round is generally an underdog round, and then divisional round, after everyone sees all these underdogs covering, then the market goes to the underdogs, but really divisional round is a time to bet favorite. So give me Miami, +4.5, +5, whatever. I think this line should be 3.
Yeah, look, the line has actually been moving in the direction of the Chiefs because everyone is buying into this Dolphins can't play in cold weather narrative. By the way, everything you just said also applies to a game that tends towards the under with the power of the Dolphins running game. I do love the Dolphins in this spot, but I like the under a lot more. I like the under because of the weather. I like the under because of the 15-mile-per-hour winds and the trends we've been talking about. I don't think this number can get low enough on the board for bookmakers for me to feel uncomfortable taking the under in this game. All right, so for the second pick, we are going with the Chiefs-Dolphins under. Convince Me is presented by Bet365. Bet365 doesn't do ordinary. That's why you get more boost with them than with anyone else. Every day they power up the odds on hundreds of bets to give you a chance to win more. Bet365 boosts specific markets, your winnings, and even parlays. And they don't stop there. Keep an eye out for their biggest and best odds with the incredible Super Boost. Check out the boost and see why it's never ordinary at Bet365. Must be 21 or older and present in Colorado, Iowa, New Jersey, Louisiana, Ohio, Virginia, or 18 and older in Kentucky. Gambling problem, call 1-800-GAMBLER or 1-800-BETS-OFF in Iowa. Terms, conditions, restrictions apply. All right, don't forget, you must RSVP, link in the description for this show, our wildcard weekend event. It's at the Shepherd in the Knucklehead, Hoboken, New Jersey, 4 to 9 p.m. Eastern today, 4 to 9 p.m. Eastern tomorrow. Live show with me and Simon doing the favorites at 7:30 tomorrow night. Make sure you like and subscribe to the Action Network YouTube page. Don't forget to download the app to find our picks. And by the way, fellas, let's all special shout out to our intrepid producer, Gifford Gould, who is on the mend when he wakes up, and he'll wake up, and because he's such a professional, we know he's going to watch the show back on tape. He will see this and know we are thinking about him, wishing him well, wondering why he really did take such drastic steps to get out of working this weekend. It feels like overkill, right?
Yeah,
a little bit?
A little bit.
Like, come on, Gifford. We could have just said, take the weekend off if you're struggling. The touchdown show is coming up, but first we are going to toss to Stuckey and Tim Kalinowski to see which of your knuckleheads need to mix in a water. Thanks, everybody.
Well, take a break here to figure out who needs to mix in a water. I'm Tim Kalinowski with Stuckey, the man who, he passes around the waters. I've been to Stuckey's bar down in Kentucky. He passes out the waters when you need one. But let's talk about from a gambling perspective on this wild card weekend. We have a couple tweets here from people. We asked what's the craziest, dumbest bets you're thinking of this wild card weekend. And the first one I want to read to you, Stuckey. Thinking about the Dolphins not to record a sack plus 700. The injuries that the Dolphins have, well noted, but is that why or why not this person needs to mix in a water?
No water needed. I think there's a lot of value on this bet. You're talking about Patrick Mahomes, who evades sacks and pressure as well as any quarterback. The Dolphins are obviously depleted at edge rush. They went out, signed a bunch of guys off the street. But if this was 2017, their edge rushers, Bruce Irvin, Justin Houston, et cetera, would be very formidable. But now it's not a great edge rush. You also could see with the weather two much heavier run frequency game plans. So that would lead to fewer dropbacks. But Mahomes is so good at evading sacks, and you have this Dolphins team, they might try to bring more pressure, but you don't really want to blitz Mahomes. So I think there's a ton of value in this. I think this number should be, closer to 4 to 1. So plus 700, of course, no water needed. This is a great number.
Yeah, I think back to that Kansas City-Cincinnati game last year, I think it was, when the weather conditions were so poor that people were saying that it negated a lot of the pass rush during the game, and that, the field was essentially frozen. Those guys need, a full sprint to get off the ball and get to the quarterback. Real quick, who would I guess be the other leader, or who should be Should the Dolphins be favored for this? I guess is what I'm asking. Like, who would be the sack leader in your mind going?
Like from a
wild
team
card?
perspective?
Yeah.
I mean, I think I saw Chiefs minus 120 to record the first sack, which I actually like because I think that the Chiefs are more likely to get pressure and to get the Tua because mainly Mahomes does such a good job of evading pressure. So, I think this is a great price.
All right, let's move on here. Still in the AFC, the Pittsburgh Steelers, they're going to Buffalo. The line sitting in the 9.5, 10 range. But this person is looking at Steelers on the money line, and that's looking about plus 390, almost a 4-to-1 payout there. Steelers, they're getting 10 points. Or 9 points, 9.5. Is it worth taking the points? Or are you going to go on the money line instead? Maybe a sprinkle? Is this a half water, sip of water? What is it?
Yeah, normally, if there were normal conditions, I would say mix in a water. I have a Bills future. I also have the Bills money line to close out a parlay. I think this is a game, even with the conditions, too, where the inexperience of Rudolph. Inexperienced quarterbacks, historically, have not performed well in their first playoff start, specifically on the road, and against quarterbacks that have experience, which Josh Allen certainly does. But I can't say mix in a water for this because it's a decent-sized moneyline underdog, and you have a ton of weather variance right now. How much snow are we going to get? And more importantly, how much wind is there going to be? And now look, we're a couple days out, so these things can change with a lake effect. But if you have 30 to 35 mile-an-hour winds, and you have snow on the ground, and it's significant snow, even 3 to 4 inches. What does that mean? That means nothing happens in the game. Everyone loads the box. You can't throw it. Now, I will say Allen has a better opportunity with his arm in bad conditions to complete some passes. But when you have conditions like that, it could come down to a couple fumbles, right? And then that certainly favors the underdog when you introduce a ton of weather variance, which we could have here. So I'm going to say no need to mix in a water. No, I'm not really handing out any waters here. I don't mind that bet given the uncertainty. Steelers money line under parlay, where this game is just extremely ugly. No one does anything, and in typical Steelers fashion, they just wait, keep the game within reaching distance, and then they hit a big play or cause a turnover late. And it hurts that they don't have Watt because he'd be a huge candidate to make something like that happen. But still, with all the weather here, no need to mix in a water.
Well, I trust your opinion here because this feels, a lot of these games with the weather feel like service academy games, and we know that those are your favorite to bet. The variance with one turnover can change the entire game. So that's what it feels like there. And there's also been a bunch of interesting stats in the same segment we've had throughout the year. There's been a tweeter who's told us that when Buffalo's a favorite, they either win by 1 million points or they lose outright. They've been on this outrageous run this regular season, so this would be another possibility to fit the bill there. Either the bill's big or they end up losing outright. All right, let's close it out here with a little prop, a little fun. To lead wild card weekend in passing yards, Baker Mayfield 15-1. They're obviously playing the Philadelphia Eagles that have a lot of people scratching their heads, waiting for the Philadelphia Eagles of last year to come back. Baker Mayfield, he's been stable, but he's also banged up. Does this person need to mix in a water at 15-1?
Yeah, a couple things do work in your favor here is you have 2 weather games, so Steelers, Bills, passing should be suppressed, and you might see a little bit of suppression in Kansas City, Miami. But I think Ben needs to mix in maybe a half a water here. I just don't like this price. Checked with our sim guys, too, and make this closer to like 20-1. You do still have the Lions-Rams game, which could easily turn into a shootout. Total is, 52.5. You have the Packers-Cowboys game as well. So checking with them, Dak plus 550-ish.
Yep,
Only value that my guy Kerner saw on the board. So definitely would need more than 15-1 to back Baker. Even though the Eagles' defense has major issues, that still probably profiles as a lower scoring game. Could even get weather there. So mix in just a little water, a few sips. I would need a better price here.
Couple sips. If you look too, how about this? You know who's favored for this? You know who's favored to lead wild card weekend in passing yards?
Who?
Joe Flacco.
Wow.
What year is this that Joe Flacco? He's tied with Dak, I guess. Fine. but plus 550 to lead wild card weekend in passing yards. Obviously,
Unreal.
they're playing the Houston Texans. What a story it's been. It's a tremendous wild card weekend. We're so lucky to all be here in person for you to finally tell me, again, right next to you, to mix in a water. Did you have any mix in a water bets of your own? Is there anything that's tickling you that you're saying, I might need to mix in a water if I'm considering this? I know you were talking about some teaser opportunities and whatnot, but you rarely do have to mix in a water.
I will say mix in water this year was a bet that was over within 3 minutes of watching the game. I laid 22-23 with Auburn against New Mexico State, and I got good value on the close. They lost by 3 touchdowns, and then I watched that first quarter, and there was never a prayer. So I should have mixed in a water before laying 23 with a team that got absolutely hammered at home by New Mexico State. So that was definitely my 2023 mix in a water moment.
Yeah, let's hope we can avoid those on Wild Card Weekend. No college, though. That's a good thing. You're Stuckey. I'm Tim Kalinowski. This is Mix in a Water. The Touchdown Show is next.
Hello and welcome to the Super Wildcard Weekend edition of the Touchdown Show on the Action Network, presented by Bet365. I'm Gilles Gallant. I'm joined with Nick Giffen, Charlie DeSturco. We've got Brian Matthews on the feed here. Boys, we're in studio. We did it. Oh, yeah. We made it.
Big
it's
time.
Playoff time. And
year number 2.
Year number 2, that's right. And now we've got 2 playoff games today between the Cleveland Browns and the Houston Texans and the Miami Dolphins and Kansas City Chiefs. And we're going to go through these games. We're going to look at the anytime touchdown odds. We're going to comb the market, see what picks we like, maybe some picks we don't like, and we're going to go through all the markets here. And at the end of the show, we're also going to have a special anytime touchdown boosted parlay from Bet365. And the Touchdown Show is presented by Bet365. Bet365 doesn't do ordinary. That's why you get more boosts with them than with anyone else. Every day, they power up the odds on hundreds of bets to give you a chance to win more. Bet365 boosts specific markets, your winnings, and even parlays. And they don't stop there. Keep an eye out for their biggest and best odds with the incredible Super Boost. Check out the boost and see why it's never ordinary at Bet365. 21 plus only or 18 plus in Kentucky and present in Colorado, Iowa, Kentucky, Louisiana, New Jersey, Ohio, Virginia. Gambling problem? Call 1-800-GAMBLER in Colorado, Kentucky, New Jersey, Louisiana, Ohio, Virginia, or 1-800-BETS-OFF in Iowa. Terms and conditions and restrictions apply. All right, gentlemen, let's now look at Browns-Texans. First game of the day. Browns are 2.5-point favorites, and the total is 44.5. Now, coming into this game, gentlemen, the Browns' defense is probably the story of this game with how they have looked this year. Second in DVOA versus the pass. They only allowed 13 touchdowns to wide receivers all year. They're also 4th in DVOA versus the run. So one of the things about this is that when we eventually get to the Texans side, you're probably not going to hear a lot of good things about how we feel about the Texans. But at the same time, the way that the odds are reflected right now, liking a lot of Browns in this game. So let's talk about the Cleveland Browns and their anytime touchdown odds. So when you look at the top 5 automatically, you've got Jerome Ford right at the top at plus 110, followed by Amari Cooper at plus 130, with Kareem Hunt at plus 187, and then David Njoku at plus 210, rounding it out with Elijah Moore at plus 250. Now, of those 5 gentlemen, I think for me, the pick that I'm looking at right now is Kareem Hunt, because Kareem Hunt leads the Browns in the red zone touches since he has come to the team. He has the most red zone touches also with Flacco at quarterback, so it's not a Deshaun Watson, not a Joe Flacco thing as well. He's also 7th in the NFL in red zone carries inside the 5-yard line. To put that in perspective, like he has more touchdowns inside the 5-yard line than Joe Mixon, Isaiah Pacheco, Derrick Henry, Saquon Barkley, Jonathan Taylor, and there's no way that you're going to see those guys' odds at 200 or better, right? So also, these two teams, they played each other in Week 16. Now, C.J. Stroud wasn't in that game, a little bit more of a Browns blowout, but when they did play, the running game was really working for the Browns. Both Jerome Ford and Kareem Hunt did score. I mean, pretty much every Brown scored in that game. But now, the Texans, I will say, just as like a disclaimer, they do rank 2nd DVOA versus the run. But they still have allowed 19 rushing touchdowns this year. Like, I think they're very effective at stopping runners between the 20s, but once they get into the goal line, the Texans seem to be able to just kind of roll over in that spot. So, also another thing, too, is when they get into the red zone, I think they're going to be leaning on the run game even more because Joe Flacco has had crazy turnover issues. Yes, he's been passing the ball, and that's great, but 8 interceptions in 5 games. I think if they get into the red zone, they're going to want to try to be as efficient as possible. They'll likely lean on that run, try to control the game flow, keep C.J. Stroud off the field as much as possible. So Kareem Hunt is who I'm betting for Browns-Texans. Charlie, who do you like from a Browns standpoint to score today?
Yeah, so I'd be remiss if I didn't get a former Jet involved in this situation here. First off, BMAT, congratulations on your Browns being in the playoffs. My Jets unfortunately cannot be there, but I like Elijah Moore at plus 370. And I think that this is a lot of just looking at recent production and how he's performed of late. And Houston, they're actually weak, and you can take advantage of them in that slot position. And obviously, you mentioned how they roll over and Houston rolls over and dies inside the red zone. But I think that this is a great option for Elijah Moore, who also can be used as a gadget receiver, can be used in end-around situations. And we saw against the Jets, obviously revenge game narrative and all, that the Browns were using him and leaning on him, and Flacco and him seem to have a chemistry that's growing prior to an injury. So, this is a game where no Cedric Tillman, Amari Cooper is returning. How healthy he is, we don't know. Could it be one of those blanket situations where it's a decoy and that's where Elijah Moore kind of fills in? We'll see. Obviously, Njoku has his love with Flacco as well, but 14 red zone targets for Mr. Elijah Moore is first among all Cleveland wide receivers. So at plus 370, willing to take a stab on him here. And against a Texans defense that you can pass on, whether or not you can find the end zone or not will remain to be seen.
And talk about a new lease on life for Elijah Moore, too. Right. Because, again, when he was with the Jets, you would always want to bet him because you knew about how talented he was, but the quarterbacks were always holding him back so much. I apologize, Charlie.
And
for
somehow
the Jets are catching strays here in this talk.
They did play together a little bit. Elijah Moore and Joe Flacco have that somewhat connection back in New York.
For sure, yeah, absolutely. Yeah. So Elijah Moore is who Charlie is taking from the Brown side. B-Matt, who do you like for a Brown to score today?
Oh, look, I'm going to the Chief. I'm hoping I see a Chiefs slam today. I'm going David Njoku, anytime touchdown. I got this early at plus 240, but I think it's still available at plus 200 in some places. But he's got a touchdown in 4 of 5 games with Joe Flacco at the quarterback. Not only that, if you go back and you watch some of those touchdown catches, he has rewarded Joe Flacco for giving him an opportunity to make a play. That touchdown catch against the Bears was insane. David Njoku has always been an athletic specimen. He just has not had a quarterback that would feed him the ball. And look, now that he does, he is taken off. I mean, he has seen no fewer than 8 targets in every game that Joe Flacco has started at quarterback. So he's going to get the looks. And as you guys alluded to, the Browns and the Texans have already played this season fairly recently. And Amari Cooper had a career day. 200-plus yards. He absolutely went off. So, look, I wouldn't be surprised if Amari Cooper is healthy, which I assume he is since he's playing, that he's going to get some extra attention from this Houston secondary. And I think one of the beneficiaries of that, on top of Elijah Moore, would be David Njoku. So give me a Chiefs slam and go Browns.
David Njoku, man, is so tantalizing as a touchdown scorer because of the talent and just – I've been burned by him before, but also at the same time, I always keep going back to him because, as B-Matt just alluded to, he's just so good in that connection with Flacco as well.
Yeah.
Nick, do you agree with that? Are you going with Njoku too?
I'm rolling with B-Matt here.
All right.
We got to go with B-Matt here. David Njoku plus 200. I got him. I think he's around plus 210 now, even potentially at Bet365. But again, it's that Joe Flacco, David Njoku connection. These two guys, ever since Joe Flacco's been quarterback, have hit it off. 9 targets per game for Njoku with Flacco, compared to 7 without Joe Flacco. I almost said Flacco, Njoku, whatever. But and then 4 of the 5 starts that Joe Flacco has had, or I should say 3 of the 5, but 4 touchdowns total because he had a multi-touchdown game in there for David Njoku, compared to just 2 touchdowns in 11 games without Joe Flacco. That's a stark contrast there. The Texans, they also allow the 2nd most targets per game to the tight end position and the 2nd most yards per game to the tight end position. So we got a team that struggles to cover the tight ends against a tight end that's just being fed with targets, we have to go David Njoku. I'm projecting around plus 185 as fair value. So as long as you're getting longer than that number, I like David Njoku for a touchdown.
And what's even crazier, guys, too, is if you look at the way that sports books are now respecting Njoku's touchdown odds, because with Deshaun Watson, so I tracked the anytime touchdown odds throughout the entire year, his odds were anywhere between plus 300 to plus 350 in a given week. Now we're seeing David Njoku in a given spot where he's likely the most favored to score in a Browns game. So, again, big transition here, but at the same time, David Njoku has really emerged in this offense. So that is who Nick and BMAT are betting for a Brown today. Charlie is on Elijah Moore, and I am on Kareem Hunt. Let's now move to the Houston Texans. And the Houston Texans, you have Devin Singletary right at the top at plus 110 to score today, followed by Nico Collins at plus 125, Dalton Schultz at plus 210, Noah Brown at plus 250, rounded out with John Mechie III at plus 350. Now, we've been joking about this, about how, with the Texans, about how it might be a little more difficult to find value than we like, because everybody is either a little steamed or just under the value projection of where we like. So, Nick, you're the man with the fair odds and the projections here. Are you going to be finding a value at all for any Texans player today?
So, you guys heard of the luck rankings?
Yeah,
Yeah,
absolutely.
Well, this is a luck under.
Oh, no.
So we're expecting this game to go under the total, at least from a luck perspective. Now, there may be other reasons you like the over or other reasons you like the under, but at least from a luck perspective, these teams have been combining for more points scored and more points allowed than expected, so we should expect that to regress. And the Houston Texans themselves, they have the lowest team total of the week. So I'm not taking a touchdown score from this game. I've got nobody for Texans on this side. Now, obviously, on the Browns side, we all have got players we like, but for the Texans, I haven't been able to find anybody that I think the odds are convincing enough to be able to bet. The Texans, they also just start slow. They have only 2 touchdowns on first drives this year. In 17 games, they have 2 first drive touchdowns.
One was last week.
Yep, one was last week against the Colts.
First pass of the game, I think.
And they just have 17 first half touchdowns all year. That's just 1 per game. They start slow. So then you add in C.J. Stroud, right? Rookie quarterback, his first playoff start. He's going to be a little nervous or tired or anything like that. I hope not. I'm rooting for him, but I think he could get into the game and maybe have a better second half after they're trailing. So for me, if I would lean somebody, I would lean a pass catcher for the Texans. And for me, the closest one to fair value would be Nico Collins, around plus 160, plus 165. If you can find that or longer, then I might be willing to bite on Nico Collins. But I'm going to wait towards game time because we know the odds tend to increase towards game time. And then maybe I'll take Nico Collins.
Okay, so Nico Collins is who he would lean to initially, but also at the same time, unless you're getting plus 160, don't bother with Nico. But so the next thing, though, is I like Dalton Schultz in this game. Now, again, Nick has told me he has been adamant about how Dalton Schultz is not a good pick for this game. And that's okay, but I think what we would probably have just a disclaimer at right now, because he's around plus 250. I'm seeing some plus 250s and plus 260s out there. You could probably in-play that and wait maybe a little bit and maybe get better odds. But at the same time, for me, it's just really hard to find value on a Texans player today. Like every guy's steamed, and especially with the fact that their team total is low. Like you're seeing C.J. Stroud like as maybe around plus 550. These guys are being priced like if there's going to be at least 25 points scored by the Texans, and you already have the luck under. But so I guess the next question I have to ask, Nick, why do you hate on Schultz so bad? What's up with the hate on Schultz?
There's a lot of reasons, actually.
I would love to hear it.
He has only cleared 4 receptions 4 times this year.
Right, so you're on the under on his receptions.
On his under receptions.
Okay.
The Browns, they allow the fewest targets per game to the tight end position.
Top 5 in DVOA versus tight end, too.
Well, they also get pressure at a top 7 rate, so he may be needed to stay in the block a little more. They play man at one of the highest rates in the NFL. Dalton Schultz's target rate goes down versus man coverage. So it's just a confluence of a lot of factors. Then, of course, Noah Brown, Robert Woods coming back. Brevin Jordan has been cutting into his snaps, so there's a lot of reasons to potentially dislike Dalton Schultz this weekend. So I know he burned the Cleveland Browns last time, but just like you're saying with Amari Cooper, well, maybe they pay a little extra attention to that this time to not let him burn them this time.
Yeah, and I think, again, like when we're talking about this, like he's more talking about like the reception side of things. And again, for me, from a touchdown perspective, he might be able to score, but again, even that, I just don't feel strongly enough.
If you're only
this
catching
game.
3 passes
And a
it's
touchdown.
going to be tough for one of them to be a touchdown.
I mean, it could be an
so.
interesting same game parlay. You take the under on the receptions and the touchdown, or something like that.
Now my man's Now my man is
Let's
thinking.
get some
Yeah, I could get behind.
Negative correlation.
So we're not liking really Texans at this point though. But Charlie, if you did have to bet a Texan today, is there a guy that you would lean to?
Yeah, the guy I'd lean to is Noah Brown, right? Like I think that injuries aside, if he's returning and he's playing, and you're assuming he's at full health, that this is a big-bodied receiver that has chemistry with Noah Brown, with CJ Stroud. And when you look at the red zone targets inside of the 10 after Nico Collins, Noah Brown is the guy. So, it's north of 3-1. I was hoping I'd get like a 354-1. I gave out Noah Brown a while ago in the show, back when he was above 5. Now that number is never coming back. So this is a game where I'm going to be at the watch party. I'm going to be sitting there, and I'm going to be tuning in to you guys on Bet What Happens Live, and probably taking a Texan to score in the second half, assuming that's
I wouldn't
when
be
you guys
surprised
would
if we
attacking.
do end up taking a halftime touchdown.
That's what I'm
on
thinking.
Bet What Happens
Bet What
Live.
Happens Live tonight. Maybe that's where we'll get to the Texans. Now, before we move on to Chiefs Dolphins, B-Matt, is there anyone on the Texans side that you would lean to, or are you saying with us like we're just going to pass on Texans for today?
Yeah, look, I'm going to pass on the Texans for today, but if I did have a lean, sorry, Nick, Dalton Schultz. So, hey, look, man, this guy, Dalton's been good to me, all right? So let me just put that out there first and foremost. And I think, look, as far as the opportunities go, I think he might, get some of those red zone looks. But otherwise, I do like the Noah Brown look. But yeah, I'm on the Browns today.
All right. Let's now move to Dolphins Chiefs. Chiefs, 4.5-point home favorites with an over-under of 44. Now, these two teams, they did play each other this year, but that was actually in Germany in Week 9. Chiefs won 21-14. Total was around 50.5. But the top 5 touchdown scorers on the Dolphins side, you have Devon Achane right at the top at plus 137, and Raheem Mostert also at plus 137, and Tyreek Hill also at plus 137. Followed by Jalen Waddle at plus 250, and Jeff Wilson Jr. rounding up the top 5 at plus 400. B-Matt, now today's weather expected to be super cold in this game. There's wind chill warnings in Kansas City. As a result, who do you like for a touchdown score for the Dolphins today, or are you passing on those two?
No, look, I think there's a ton of value in this game, just based on if you were to tell me that we were going to have the Chiefs-Dolphins and that you would see all of these Dolphins offensive skill position players at these odds, I go, oh, all right, I'm going to make about 100 parlays here. But I understand that the weather is cold. That's probably not the good move. So we know that, it's going to be cold. So my pick is going to be Raheem Mostert. I was actually kind of surprised with his odds. Look, I know Devon Achane has been fantastic, but look, Mostert he's tied for the league lead in rushing touchdowns. He is 6th in the NFL in red zone carries. Like, when you watch him, if you go back, I think he's got a touchdown in 5 straight games, including 2 multi-touchdown games. So, like, Raheem Mostert is, to me, when you're in the playoffs and you've got cold weather, I would think if you're a coach, you might want to lean on the guy that's got some veteran, who's been there before, right? Who you're not going to worry about potentially fumbling, not holding the ball well. Look, I got to go Raheem Mostert. I just don't think I'm going to see these odds at this point, and I think this is one of those games where we could just see both teams, just pound the ball, run quite a bit. So I, got to go Mostert. That's my guy, and I got better odds than I thought at plus 160. So that's going to be the first one.
Yeah, B-Matt, you made a really good point, too, about how there's a lot of value on Dolphins players today because, again, throughout the season, you had Tua Tagovailoa. He led the league in passing yards. You hit that at 22-1. Receiving yards, Tyreek Hill, leader in receiving yards, co-leader for most touchdowns, Raheem Mostert. Yet we're seeing all these guys with increased odds out there. And because of that, I'm with you, B-Matt. I'm going to take Raheem Mostert, too. And,
Let's go.
One of the things, too, about those red zone carries, 19 carries inside the 5-yard line. That's the most in the NFL. To me, that's much more indicative of what we're going to probably see if they get that close to the goal line. And when with these teams met in Germany, by the way, he did score in that game, and he actually had odds around minus 115 to score. Now, obviously, we're seeing a much different environment here playing in Kansas City. But, I mean, even the Chiefs this year, they were 27th in DVOA versus the run. So they're much stronger from a secondary and passing standpoint. This game probably won't lend itself that well to passing, but Raheem Mostert is the guy who I think we need to be betting, and I think we're getting a nice little value here, especially for a guy who led the NFL in touchdowns. I want to hear your bet now, guys, because to me, I'm so happy that you guys got this, and I'm happy that we're getting this on the show. Who do you bet, Charlie?
We're collabing on this.
I love this.
We are collabing on this
okay.
one. Listen, if I was 7 years old and I walked down the stairs, saw under my Christmas tree presents, and the first thing I opened up is Tyreek Hill anytime touchdown at plus 155, I would be like, oh my God,
Merry
this is
Christmas.
amazing.
Yeah.
I'm not opening any other gifts. This is good.
Listen, I could be quarterback of this Miami Dolphins team, and Tyreek Hill's anytime touchdown odds should not even be 155. So
I agree.
I'm taking this bet here. Listen, you look at the numbers. Everything you can say can back it. He's number 1 in red zone targets in the entire NFL when it comes to inside of the 10-yard line. The Chiefs, they run a ton of man.